All right, Lucas, we're up to the Jordan car, the 23rd story car, that is. So, 2004 Mayan M8R, which is a Lincoln LS, I think. Anyway, hi, it's Johnny. One of my employees will drop by with another car. I hope you'll find a moment for him. Don't be deceived by the external appearances. It's not without reason that this is set on a chassis. The engine has been completely destroyed. I bought it from an insurer for peanuts. I don't know how it happened, but the motor is battered. Restore it to perfect shape. I think an original mileage like this one will make a tasty bite. Thanks. We'll be in touch. Change the oil, and there'll be other tasks. So it sounds like this is going to be a full engine rebuild. So let's take this order, and it is, like every car we've taken on these story orders, it's filthy. So we're gonna clean her up first. That'll be where we'll start, which is a pattern I have when restoring cars or working on them. I just clean them up first. Plus, if I paint them, if they're my cars or whatever, then they're ready to paint. All right, that looks better. Check the orders. So we got 5 pages of broken parts. Change brake fluid, change coolant, change power steering, headlight alignment, windshield washer fluid. Well, those are easy things to address. Let's just do that right off the bat. Coolant, or washer fluid, and drain the other fluids. There's not much power steering fluid. I don't think there's hardly any coolant. There isn't. Is there any brake fluid? Sniff. Okay. This is a supercharged engine. You can see that supercharger looks like crud on top. That's probably bad. The suspension in the back, just eyeballing it from the distance here, looks okay. Looks nice and silvery in the back there, so that's probably fine. The radiator looks fine, so I'm going to go ahead and dump in the coolant now while we're ahead of it. Alright, so the coolant's in. And then let's pop in the power steering fluid. Which, interestingly, as you pull the engine, I don't believe we have to deal with draining the coolant again or the power steering fluid. Like we would for the oil. Alright, so this... Actually, the engine block itself looks rusted. We might actually have to do a block change on this engine. Alright, let's do some tests. Can we go straight to a compression test? It can't be started. Okay. Onboard diagnostic scan we can do. That's a good place to start. Hey, what's up, my buddy? Hey, Luke. Isaac. Isaac, give me 5, bud. We're doing an onboard diagnostic scan. Give me 5 while we're doing that. Ignition coils, they're bad. That's probably why I need starting. Spark plugs look good. My boy. This is some weird shake. Alright, there we got it. Ignition coils are bad. Let's do an electronic multimeter. 6. I saw a 0.06 in there. Yeah, do it on video, buddy. That is too many parts to remember. It's still going. Jeez. That, you saw it here first. This is the world premiere. So, my gosh, that was a sweet shake. Can we do a fuel pressure test? Probably not. I guess we can check on the tires, right? And what every good gaming table needs? Snacks. Know what I'm saying? You just need to have some snacks. So, Jelly Bellies. Pour it in a little snack dish. Alright? Pop a jelly bean. Put your spares in your desk drawer. Alright. We got snacks. Tires are good. Alright. I think it's just going to be a full engine rebuild, honestly. Let's get after it. 5 minutes into this video, see if we can get an engine rebuild done in under 20. Maybe. We'll try. Move this to the Mayan. Drain the fluid. There was hardly any oil in there. I'm going to move my cherry picker to the engine in front of the car. Now to pull an engine, you're going to have to disconnect the trans. Remember, 4 bolts in the front on a drive shaft, 4 bolts in the back. Drive shaft is off. To pull a trans, you're going to have to find the starter. Pull the starter, then you can pull the trans. The other thing that you'll have to disconnect, depending on the type of engine and trans setup, you may or may not have to pull front exhaust pieces. This, I can tell you, you have to pull these front exhaust pieces, and then we can pull the engine. Drop the car. And we'll pull the engine out, and we'll walk it over to the engine stand. Install engine on the stand, and then we're just going to tear it down. And I think you'll find as we tear this down, there's going to be a lot of parts that are messed up on this engine, including the engine block itself. So when looking at belts, you can see here, this belt is in front of that belt. So this belt's going to come off first. What's holding this belt? Well, look and see which pulley's outside of the belt. That's the pulley you can pull. Then pull that pulley. Then you can disconnect the pulleys that are not connected to that. And you can pull this alternator. Might as well just grab the oil filter since I'm right there. All right, so again, looking at this belt, if there's a belt tensioner, which is this device here, if that device is there, pull that. Then you can pull the belt and you can take off all the pulleys. And we didn't drain the coolant, and we just took the water pump off, so we know we can do that. I'm going to pull all these pulleys. I'm just going to take this off too, because I'm pretty sure that engine block is bad. If it's not bad, it is really rusty. So it probably needs to be repaired. So we're just pulling and pulling. And doing a full engine rebuild when it's this way, this is how you're going to do most car restorations. Is generally a full teardown and then upgrade of parts too to performance parts. Exhaust manifold out, get the spark plugs out. Okay, and I'm going to do the same on this side. We know these ignition coils are bad, so we'll buy some new ignition coils. And there's actually, I think, 1 or 2 of the ignition coils that were not bad, but we're just going to replace 8 so I don't have to remember which spot the bad ignition coil was at. This timing cover off. Pull the belts. Take off the camshafts. Then I can pull the heads. Oh, 1 exhaust manifold. Sorry. Now we can pull the head on this side, which has 3 6 bolts. Okay, grab the 6 bolts on this side. Okay, and we'll get over here. We'll get the bearing off, clutch plate, pressure plate, clutch plate, and flywheel. Then we can rotate the engine, take off the oil pan, and crankshaft bearings. Pull the rod caps off. If you recall, we bought a bunch of rod caps with our last upgrade. So we won't have to deal with buying rod caps. We might have some here that we can repair, but we'll see what we see. Alright, let's pull the pistons all out. Crank. And the block. Okay, so we tore the engine completely apart. I'm gonna go right over here to see what things I can repair. We got 3 pages of repairable parts, none of which were parts that were actually broken. So we have a choice. You could repair these if you chose, or you could just leave them be. Which for these, I think we're just gonna leave them be. Alright, so let's go ahead and sort by condition from bad to worse. And out of curiosity, let's go look at the car and the car list. Yep, and it was a complete engine. It's the only thing that was wrong with this thing, other than the headline alignment. Alright, so we sorted by condition. We got to replace pistons. So we're just going to click it once to buy 8. Idler rollers we don't have to worry about because we have a bunch. Serpentine belt we'll need. Supercharger we'll need. Rod cap I'm not going to add to the list. Fuel rail I'll need. Supercharger, yep. Engine block. Fuel filter, sure. Belt tensioner, oil filter. Ignition coil, alternator. Timing belt, there's 2 of those. Water pump. Cam gear, crank, water shaft, pump pulley, serpentine belt, another fuel rail. Alright, the rest of these are fine. Now here's my thought. We're replacing pistons. Rings are cheap. Why on earth would you replace pistons and keep the old rings, even if they're at 90% condition? So I just got rid of the old rings. Partially because we have a pile of good rings. So I see no reason to not replace the pistons with those. All right, let's go to the car shop and buy 8 pistons. Serpentine belt. Supercharger intake. 2 fuel rails. Supercharger. The engine block. This is an expensive repair. Fuel filter. Oil filter. Ignition coils aren't here. Alternator's not here. Timing belts 2. Water pump. Cam gear, we need 4. Crank for a V8. Water pump pulley. Actually, I'm going to buy like a half dozen more of those. That's a very common part. Serpentine belt B. Then we'll go to the electronics store. We'll just buy 8 ignition coils. and an alternator. All right, so we have all the parts purchased that we need. Go to part mount, put on the new block and the new crank. Then we can put on the new pistons with nice new rings. And what I'll do is I'm going through this, I just click on the piston, tap, tap with the enter. So it picks the piston and picks the most appropriate ring. Put on the rod caps. Rod caps. Crankshaft pulley, or bearing, excuse me. Rod caps. Rod caps. Crankshaft bearing cap. Some rod caps. Alright, so all the rod caps and new pistons are in place. Put on the oil pan. New oil filter. The old flywheel we didn't repair or replace. Clutch plate, clutch pressure plate, and these are the original parts. The bearing, we have new bearings, but I'm just going to put the old one on just because it was 96%. Alternator we replace. Power steering pump we replaced. And I'm going to rotate the engine. Put on the heads. 6 bolts for these heads. Couple of camshafts. Nice original spark plugs. New fuel filter. Exhaust manifold. Okay. Camshaft gears. Alright, let's get the head on this side. And it's 6 bolts. Couple of camshafts. Exhaust manifold on this side. Couple of cam gears. Put on the spark plugs. Timing belt. And another timing belt. Put on the timing cover. And we can put on the supercharger, intake, and the supercharger itself. Water pump. Water pump pulley. Crank pulley. And I'll put in all these idler rollers. New belt. Tensioner. Another belt. Another pulley. That's done. Hop up to the top, put on the covers. There's, 9 bolts for this? Yep. This is a pretty common engine. I like this engine too. This one, you can get a good amount of performance out of this motor. Oil cover, fuel rail on this side, engine cover and the 9 bolts. And then the ignition coils, which we replaced all of the ignition coils, so we didn't have to worry about where to put the ones that were, 94%. throttle, coil cover. All right, this engine is back together. So we'll just take it off the stand. So you got to click on the back of the stand. I can click in the right spot, take off stand. Go over here. Nope. Put engine in. Move the equipment back. Check car status. And we finished it. We just have to put some oil in. And we're right at 20 minutes. So we did a rebuild right around 20 minutes, including my talking and various other stuff, including the description of the car that we were working on. We're here to part mount, put back the gearbox. Tap on the drive shaft. Remember, 4 bolts in the front. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 in the back. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 bolts. Put the starter back on. Those front exhaust pieces. Good. Escape out of here, and then I'm just going to move the car to the test path. He wanted his headlights aligned. So you just go to the headlight alignment tool. And again, you want this brightest part in that lower part of the middle square. There we go. Left. There's the bright part. Put it right in this middle square, aligned. Escape when you're done. Go to our car status, and we're done with everything. It's a $24,000 repair. That is not insignificant as far as repairs go. And we got a case, I'm sure. Case, yeah. Open her up. We'll start in the middle, 3 and 4. Barn map and some money. Nice. Add that to our inventory. And then I'm going to sell everything below 96%. I sold all those old parts. Save the game. And I think this is where we'll end guide 23, right? Just below 23 minutes of time. And the next one, a 79 Zephyr, which is a pretty cool looking 70s Lincoln. But we'll deal with that in the next video. Lucas Isaac Parker, hope you liked it. See you in the next one.